Now, Ask Dr. Love with psychotherapist, author, love and relationship expert Jamie Turndorf, Ph.D.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ask Dr. Love Radio. I'm Dr. Jamie Turndorf, and it's my pleasure to be with you today. I'm talking about happiness. How can you be happy no matter what's going on around you? And I have a special guest to talk about this. Her name is Cindy Teevens, and she's one of the leading inner peace and happiness facilitators. And she's exceptional and unique in helping people shift their state and transform their lives permanently from the inside out. And this all came about 6 years ago after the violent suicide of her father. In one moment, her own intense suffering was swapped for amazing joy, and it altered her life permanently. And happiness and peace became her predominant states. Laughter exploded at the simplicity and power of it, and tears of gratitude flowed. Understandings began to come about, and she realized that we're all living backwards, how we have mistaken the outside for the inside, and how we have tethered ourselves to the uncontrollable winds of change in the midst of freedom, and how we can return to truth, sanity, and peace. So, Cindy, are you there?
I am here. Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you. Hi.
I'm so glad that you came on my show today. So let's get with it. What happened to you, this amazing transformation? It was like a God moment. Just describe what happened to you.
Well, years prior to it, my father suffered severely, which led to intense depressions and ultimately to suicide. And after he passed, I promised him that it would not be for nothing. And I didn't know what it meant at the time, but it started me on a quest to find an end to suffering. And some years later, I was denied the love I thought I had to have. It's an age-old story of attachment and suffering. And I suffered for weeks, intensively wanting what I did not have. And right in the middle of my own intense suffering, the pain was suddenly swapped for joy and love, and it altered my life. And you know what? Nothing outside of me changed.
Right. So, but it sounds like it was like a divine moment where in this moment you connected with Spirit, God, Yahweh, however you want to call it, and you just realized all the love you needed was inside you.
Yeah, because I promised my dad that it would not be for nothing, suicide was out of an option for me, but I thought about it, I couldn't commit suicide, and I came to the end of suffering. It was not just that I wanted to feel better, it was zero tolerance. And not knowing what else to do, I just stopped.
And what's amazing is it wasn't like you did some cognitive thing where you said, this is it, I'm going to do step A, B, C, D. It was an experience. It just came in you like, that's it, I'm done. I'm not going to be miserable anymore.
That's right. But I didn't know what else to do because, we're not taught what else to do. And no, there was no cognitive, not of my own accord anyway, but there was this gap where I heard you can give yourself whatever you want.
You heard that message coming into you?
Yes.
Yeah, so it was like you were channeling message from God, Spirit, some kind of guardian angel, spirit guide, whatever your, spiritual or religious orientation is. It was telling you have a choice as to your emotional state.
Yes, and yes, whatever you choose to call that, I didn't call it anything. I just heard you can give yourself whatever you want because I'd been doing so much wanting, and I heard that, and I just went back into the suffering, but this was thrown into the mix, and in the middle of the suffering, I thought, well, if that were true, what do I want?
Right.
And it was, it was really that was the turning point.
And now when you say I went back into the suffering, you mean immediately, a day later, a week later, you had 5 minutes of peace? How long did it last?
No, there wasn't. I went back into the suffering immediately, meaning back into the pain of I want this, but you don't have it. But I want this, but you don't have it. But now thrown into the mix was, but you can give yourself whatever you want. And so there I was laying in bed, in complete excruciating pain, debilitating, laying there crying. And this was going on, this back and forth was going on. And now there was, well, you can give yourself whatever you want. And it wasn't until I put my attention on that, onto answering that question, that the change happened.
Well, you made a paradigm shift in your own head, because the concept of you can give yourself whatever you want was taking the responsibility off of others. My happiness depends on whether my husband, my wife, my boyfriend, my lover treats me well. And if they treat me well, then I'm happy. Here you're saying I can give myself whatever I want.
Exactly.
It's about you.
And so if it's not outside of me, it must be within me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, it's interesting because your dad was depressed and he committed suicide, and you were depressed your whole life until this transformational moment. And of course, a lot of people coming from a medical model would say, oh, well, he had a chemical imbalance and you inherited it. But actually, he had a thought imbalance, is the way
Yeah, it's true.
Right?
Actually, I was not depressed all my life. In fact, I was fairly happy. I was a average normal person. But I didn't know that I had these attachments. I didn't know I had this belief that I needed the outside to be a certain way, that I needed things, people, or events in order to be happy. I didn't know that until I was denied it.
Until you were denied it. Right. And then so often when we're denied what we want, people then focus on, what can I do to change, manipulate the situation, control it in order to make the other person do what I want and give me what I want, and then I'll be happy. And then, of course, that just makes you more unhappy.
Exactly. Because you remain attached, number one, and you're going to be denied another time, again, in the future, number two. And so you're always on edge of fear of losing it, number three. So it's a very painful way to live existence, completely unnecessary.
Absolutely. So, and it's a very kind of Buddhist notion, the surrendering of attachment, which people think, well, then that means you don't care about anyone or anything, but it's the opposite. Exactly.
And the thing is, when people think about detachment, they think it's some kind of negative feeling, some kind of void, some kind of I have to live in a lesser than joyful life. And it's not true when you discover that what you want is within you and you become self-fulfilling and you give yourself whatever you want. That is detachment. It's not a loss. It's a complete gain.
Right. After my husband died, I went through a period where I wrote a lot of poems. And one of the poems I wrote, they were often like haikus. I wrote, well, I no longer sit alone upon the shelf, not since I've fallen in love with myself.
Ooh, I love it. Can I quote that? That's great.
Yeah, because that is the hardest thing for people to get, is that you have to first have the love affair with yourself. And when you really feel that connection with yourself, you don't feel alone.
No,
you really
never.
Don't.
Being alone and feeling lonely are two different things. You can be alone and be completely not lonely and very happy and very blissful, very ecstatic beyond more than anything you ever experienced in a relationship, because when you believe it's another person or thing fulfilling you, it's limited. It's limited by them and what they do. But I'm here to say that everybody is capable of so much more joy than you have lived or imagined, and actually it's been your imagination that has limited you.
Right. So now you say you didn't get the person you wanted, nothing outside you changed. So if somebody were listening now and wanted to know, but how did you switch to love and joy? How did you switch your pain? Was it something you think you did, or it was just done for you? It was a gift that was brought to you?
Well, the power was in the question that came to me, but I had to answer the question. So I came to my end, what I would call the end of suffering. I had zero tolerance for suffering. I wanted to feel good. Plus, I refused to blame the outside. I realized that nobody out there is the cause of my pain or my joy, and I refused to blame it on them. And we don't know any other way, We're usually taught to blame it on someone else, and then, we might feel a little bit better, but there's always this bad taste, left over. And I just wanted pure love. So in that moment, when I heard that question, what do I want? And I answered it. And I answered it with my whole being. I found all the love, the dignity, the respect, the joy, the peace. Every single thing I looked for was there already. It was always already there. And all the energy that was being used to suffer flipped over into the most amazing joy, love, peace, like I had never experienced before.
Mm-hmm. So now, do you live your life alone, in love with yourself, or do you have a relationship? And have you brought this new perspective to your relationship?
Since then, I have thus far been living alone. I have done, some dating and whatnot. But, when you are in love with love itself, you don't need anything. So you won't make the wrong choices in a partner either. There's no urgency to be in a relationship. And so, but in the moment, this wasn't immediate. It flip-flopped for a while, back and forth between, because the old habit of mind was still there. It wasn't like it was one instant and then it was done and over. Old mind, I call it now, old mind would still arise and say, yeah, but this has happened. You can't be happy. But I got used to realizing that no matter what thoughts said, I could feel good. I didn't have to believe it. And that was a huge freedom. And
so not believing everything you think.
Yeah, and I'm realizing
right?
that I'm not even thinking it. It's just arising. That's what the brain does. It's a thought machine. It puts out, 40,000 thoughts a day.
And if you get very attached to everything you think, you're in big, deep poop, right? Because most of the things we think are pretty nutty.
Exactly. So,
and feelings are often not facts, and often thoughts are not facts, right?
Exactly. And just because a bad thought arises doesn't mean it's true. Just because you're feeling bad doesn't mean the thought is true. It means you're experiencing a bad thought feeling. That's it.
Yeah. And even I find I like to not label a thought or a feeling as bad or good, because then it charges it with too much emotional intensity to say it's bad, as opposed to, I say often feelings are like farts. Some are big and some are little and some are stinkier, but they just are. They float on by, and they dissipate. Or like a balloon that's passing your hemisphere. You just watch the thought or the feeling float on by like a balloon. There's not a bad balloon or a good balloon. It's just a balloon.
It's true. They do come and they do go. When I work with people, I show them, though, I get them to become aware of when they have a bad feeling, because they can use it. It's like if you fall on the floor, you don't curse the floor, you use it and you push off to stand up again. And so we can use our emotions to shift in the right direction to get clarity and understanding and wisdom.
So when you say shift, because you're using this terminology, shift a bad feeling, so do you have your coaching clients take the thought and convert it to a different thought? It
was really funny. When this happened to me, I didn't have words for it. I didn't know how it was happening. And when I went to visit a friend, she was in pain, and I was ready to tell her about this crazy happiness I'd been experiencing, but she was in pain, so I couldn't do it. But when I asked her some questions, the words for it came through me to her, and she shifted state, and she had access to wisdom and clarity. I went, oh my God, these are the words. This is how, I can communicate it. And so. And
the words are?
And the words are, surprise, surprise. The first question is, what do I want? Because
isn't that a most simple question?
It is so simple and so powerful.
Because most people don't think about what they want. They think about what somebody else wants and how do I please somebody else, and then I'm all pissed off because I'm not getting what I want and I'm a victim.
That's right. Yeah, or when I work with people,
what do you want? Are you comfortable? The most basic thing. If we had been raised properly, we would know to ask that question.
Exactly. And, now when I work with people, because we've been so conditioned wrongly, when I ask them that question, 8 or 9 times out of 10, they'll tell me what they don't want.
I know. Now that is really messed up, right? Or that also happens for couples when you, instead of saying what you want from your partner, you tell your partner everything you're doing wrong. And this is what I don't like. And this, oh my word. Right. Just say what you want.
It's like going to the restaurant, and saying, well, I don't want the salmon, and no, I don't want.
Right, and I hate T-bone. All right, so I have to take a brief break, and I'll be back with you in a moment on Ask Dr. Love Radio. Hello again, and welcome back to Ask Dr. Love Radio. I'm Dr. Jamie Turndorf, and I'm talking about how to be happy no matter what's going on around you. And I have a guest. Her name is Cindy Teevens, and she is a happiness facilitator and an inner peace coach. So Cindy, this is the time in my show that I call Dr. Love's Quickie. So you can guess why. We only have a few minutes to get the job done. So I always do a few tweets. And then I thought after I lay some tweets on you, I always do tweets on the topic of the show to sort of drive home the point of the show. So let me give you a few tweets for you and for everybody who's listening. And then I was thinking maybe we could do a little bit of your happiness quiz, because I promised everybody we would talk about that. So first, some tweets. Tap into the well of love that lives within, and you won't be so rocked by what does or doesn't happen with him. And here's another. You can choose to lose the blues. And did you know that a simple thought is enough to make you distraught? And what you think can make your mood stink. And you'll be making more happy faces when you stop looking for love in all the wrong places.
Oh, yeah.
And last but not least, you can be happy even if what's going on around you is quite crappy. Right? All right. So how about a little happiness quiz? Because I loved that. When I was reading your book, I saw you had some really neat quizzes. Could you give a few questions from the happiness quiz so that people know what they're going to be seeing when they read your book?
Sure. So the Happiness book has a quiz in it called the Happiness Ratio Quiz, and there are 60 questions. Now, half of them are on the happiness side, and half of them are the suffering side. So when you're done, you get a ratio that tells you relatively how much more happiness you're experiencing versus pain or suffering in your life and which direction you're heading in. So we have some questions.
Give us a couple questions?
Yeah. We have a couple of questions like, so do you worry about the future? That would be a yes or a no.
And if you say yes, you ain't happy.
You ain't happy. No.
You ain't happy.
No.
Can't be happy. Because if you live in the past or the future, you can't be happy.
Exactly, because happiness is here and now.
In the now. You got it.
Place. Yeah.
Absolutely. What else?
Do you blame yourself for things you did?
Well, that's a biggie.
That's a past. Did you notice? From the past? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What else?
Yeah. Do you believe that something is wrong with your life?
Right. And then an axillary to that is, and if my life changed, then I'd be happy. If I had a bigger house, a bigger car, a bigger fenced-in yard, right?
And that would be the attachment.
Right.
So, And do you feel that other people can drag you down? This is not true. A lot of people speak like this. Somebody has energy that just sucks my energy. It's not true.
Right. There are no victims, only volunteers. And you can volunteer to be victimized by others or not. I often use the expression, watch the show. Step back and watch the show. Because whatever somebody else is doing outside you is a show that's demonstrating to you what is going on with that other person, what that person's sticking point is, what his or her problem is. That has nothing to do with you. Yeah.
As long as you don't mind read it, we're going to get to that. If you believe you know what other people think or feel, that's one of the questions. Do you believe you know what other people think or feel?
Yeah, that one doesn't quite help, does it?
No, not ever.
Because it's called mind reading with negative affect. It's actually a shrink term. And generally when people mind read, I'd never heard people, well, unless they're psychotic and delusional and they mind read, oh, you really love me, when actually you don't. But often when people do the mind reading, it's, I know you're thinking something negative toward me.
Yeah.
Mind reading with a negative.
You know, people do it constantly and they're not even aware that that's what they're doing. And of course, every thought you have about somebody or someone else has everything to do with you and nothing to do with them.
Exactly. You know what, Cindy, I have a feeling I know what you're thinking. I think that you know that we are really coming to the end of my quickie segment and I have to take a little break.
I had a suspicion, but, I wouldn't state my mind reading in case it was wrong.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to take a brief break and I'll be back with you in a moment on Ask Dr. Love Radio. Hello again and welcome back to Ask Dr. Love Radio. Cindy, you have no idea what I've been going through here. I've got my internet service provider in my office And I'm also, I always do a movie of the show. So just now they didn't realize the camera was rolling. And so when this thing goes on YouTube, people are going to see my internet service provider in the shot because he leaned behind my camera.
Oh, boy. Well, that'll be variety.
Oh, it's variety, man, because I was having trouble with my sound quality, so they wanted to hardwire me directly and take out the wireless component to see if they could figure out what was wrong, because last week it sounded like I had some kind of like hiccup or belching problem. I don't know what the heck.
We have to take care of that.
So I can't wait to see, and of course I'm sure I keep talking and leaning over and I'm trying to pay attention to you. So I'm truly trying to be in the now with us, but it remains to be seen whether it's working or not that I'm here with you. What's great about you that comes through is your absolute joy. It's so joyful. You're like, how a kid finds happiness and joy in every little moment,
Mm-hmm.
You're like that.
Have no
and so it's like your kid is sort of playing with mine. So now where were we? I wanted to talk to you more about relationships. Your relationships. Go into some detail for me and for everybody listening. How have your relationships changed? All of the relationships. How are they now? How are they different? What are you doing different?
Well, my whole life has become deeply peaceful and joyful and light and adventurous and harmonious and peaceful. I no longer need people to be a certain way in order for me to be okay. I find it really funny now.
Yeah.
I quit mind reading people. Mind reading is claiming to know someone's state or intention or purpose or intention. Because I don't mind read, I don't fear people. I don't expect the worst in people. And so I don't believe any negative thoughts that may arise. It's not that I don't have mind reads. They may come up, habitual processing of the mind, but I don't believe them.
Absolutely. You don't believe every thought your brain creates. And then, what's a really, really good thing is if you really think there might be some truth to what you are assuming, then it's always good to check it out.
Oh, absolutely. Because,
check it out.
Mind reads are the destroyer of relationships. Mm-hmm. They really are. And what happens is you may have one mind read and then somebody else will mind read your mind read, and then it gets real ugly.
It gets ugly too because, as I said a little bit ago, as we know, we mind read with a negative interpretation. So I've got this example that I always use this depicts this so well. A husband and wife are sitting at the dinner table, and it's Tuesday night, which is always chicken night. And the husband says, when she puts down the plate of chicken, "Oh, no, it's not chicken night again." Well, she mind reads and assumes that he is dissing her chicken. So she goes nuts. "Well, you don't like my chicken? You can go stuff my chicken." And she's furious, right? And he's just looking at her like, what the heck? I just meant it's time. How fast time flies. I can't believe Tuesday chicken night has rolled around again. So that's all the dude meant. So, and then of course when she attacks him and then he gets all pissy with her. And so I have a section in my new book, called How to Train Your Brain to Fight For You, Not Against You. And it's a simple little 5-part, method where we just, hold our horses, take a step back in time. In this moment, I do encourage people to go back only to say, okay, make the link up. What are you carrying from before? Now take a hard look at reality. That's step 3. And then step 4, check out your suspicions. So she would say to her husband in this case, "So do you really hate my chicken?" And then he'd say, "Oh gosh, no, I love all of your parts, your breast, your thigh, And then the last step is to smooth any feathers, ruffled feathers. In this case, it would be chicken feathers, but and then we're out. We steered out of the problem. So
nice analogy.
Right. So
if it feels bad, don't accept it. Suspect it.
I like that little don't suspect. Don't.
If it feels bad, don't accept it. Suspect it.
Don't accept it. Suspect it. Isn't that great? That's like a really good mantra that they could use in AA.
There you go. Everywhere.
Really,
AA,
really good.
attachment to things, people, or events, which most of society has, is very close and akin to addiction. We are addicted to thinking we need a thing to make us happy, or a person or an event to make us happy. And that is truly an addiction, and that's why we have so much stress and anxiety and rising suicide going on in this society.
Mm-hmm. So just on a practical level, because, I know a lot of women, when, I was married for 26 years, crazy in love with my husband, and now, I've been single since he died of the bee sting. And a lot of people have said to me, well, how can you be alone? And how can you go out to dinner alone? And how can you travel alone? And this is a concept that's especially difficult for women, because so often we're raised to think, well, you have to have a partner. You cannot do this alone. You can't do that alone. So do you do a lot of things by yourself? Do you travel alone? You go out to dinner alone?
I do everything. Well, that's not true. I have a very large social group of people. I haven't always had a lot of social activity and been very, very happy alone, doing everything alone. I still love doing everything alone, and I do it with others as well. But I do it not in an intimate relationship capacity.
Would you be open to forming another intimate relationship?
Yeah, if it made sense.
If it made sense. if it sort of fit with your total serenity plan. Right?
Yes. If it fit with my life and my values, and absolutely. I just have no need.
Really, that is like the ultimate in total surrender and detachment from everything, Now, do you feel yourself to be a religious person, a spiritual person? Do you find yourself connecting with spirit or source? Is that part of your life and your practice?
The discovery of joy was, at that point for me, the biggest gift I'd ever received. But the gift that came after that really put it in the shadows. After I became self-fulfilling, there was nothing of this world I wanted anymore. Nothing. It's not that I didn't live, I didn't function, I didn't operate, I didn't go to work and make money. I did all that. But there was no desire for anything, to acquire anything or to avoid anything. So a peace and equanimity settled in. And what happened one day, because I'd been indulging in so much joy and bliss that it really would grow beyond belief. I would have, I'll call them ecstatic moments for absolutely no reason that I didn't know we are capable of, And one day it exploded in the woods with an explosion, a supernova explosion of love at the heart that knocked me to my knees crying, unlike anything I'd ever experienced, And when I looked up at the trees, I saw it was the end of time. It was the end of separation. It was the end of self and other. And I saw the trees as myself.
I understand what you mean.
Laughter, the laughter at the cosmic joke just burst out of me from every cell. I was being tickled from every cell, laying in the snow, laughing, giggling, crying, laughing, giggling, crying. It was what some religions would call an awakening or a kensho, or, the word doesn't matter. There's no word that describes
it's just an absolute mystical ecstasy, until you experience it, it's very hard to put words to it. But
it's
I do know, I do know exactly what you're talking about. But it's interesting because you only get to that place through the surrender, through the surrender of expecting anything from others or from the material world. And it's in that surrender, in that openness, in that sort of that void, that somehow our vessel just seems to be able to just receive this unearthly love. It's the most remarkable experience.
Way to describe it. And again, I want to emphasize that this surrender, it sounds like you're losing something. It sounds like you have to give up something. For me, it was joy. It was through and with and as joy. It was completely fulfilling. I was so fulfilled. There's no need to surrender. I surrendered to the love.
Absolutely. And the thing is, it's sort of the paradox of, the less I expect, the more I get, Yeah. And that's what you experience. So what is your day like now? So that people understand how you live in this bliss? Tell me what your day is like from the moment you wake up till the moment you put your little head down on the pillow.
I never know, and it doesn't matter.
You just flow.
Yeah, everything, goes on. Everything happens. Everything unfolds as it always did before I knew that, before I was fighting and resisting and struggling and, dog eat dog world. It's not like that at all. I never know what's going to happen. You may think you have an idea of what's going to happen,
but you don't.
Then you don't.
That is such we're so goal oriented in the West. And what I have discovered is that we are living under this illusion that we have a lot of control over outcomes, and we really don't. That we think we're planning. People say man plans, but God decides. So you could make all kinds of plans and goals and objectives, and then guess what? If it's not part of your destiny, it's not going to happen anyway. So
exactly.
You might as well just enjoy the ride and sort of let life happen to you the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, as it does. And the less you cling to making things go a certain way, the easier they go and the better they go for you, actually. So my day is always different, never the same, and never anticipated to be a certain way. I have certain appointments and things. Sometimes they happen, sometimes they don't. But nothing is a problem. Nothing.
So do you ever get pissed off anymore? Do you ever get hot under the collar?
Why would I do that to myself?
So you choose to not go there.
Well, why would I do that to myself? It's doing it to myself and nobody else.
There you go. So, even if somebody is mistreating you and calling you names and saying bad things and putting you down, well, that's the show you're watching, and you step back and you say, wow, what does that tell me about that person? But I don't have to take that on.
I never perceive that somebody is mistreating me.
Right. And what if somebody is calling you names and saying nasty things and being critical of you and putting down your chicken recipe?
Well, that's their stuff. And, I know they're suffering. When you don't take things about you, it's about them. And you know that can't be good for them, right? They're suffering.
So what you're talking about is the radical decision to not take anything personally. Take nothing personally.
Yeah, and it's more than that. For me, it just doesn't happen. It doesn't arise.
It doesn't even happen to you. You don't even have to go through the process in your mind of don't take this personally. It just doesn't. You are so able to see the other person as a suffering being, and it doesn't even if the person is screaming and yelling at you, it doesn't enter you.
No, it's not me. It's theirs.
It's so awesome. It's so awesome because you can see how if everyone could adopt this attitude, how relationships would be so much more peaceful.
Oh, yeah, there wouldn't be the mind reading going on.
There wouldn't be the arguing because in the case of the chicken example, she would just say, oh, so are you saying that you don't like eating my chicken recipe, or are you sick of chicken on Tuesday?
Yeah.
You want a tofu burger?
Yeah, right. You see, this is what we do. When people say something, they leave out a lot of information. Language by nature does that. It cannot give all the information that we have in the back of our brains that brought us to say this thing. So there's a lot of missing information, and so what we end up doing is guessing. And
Isn't that a bummer? Yep.
Yeah, it's a bummer. So
it's a bummer.
Instead of guessing, what I do is I ask people, what is your purpose for saying that? Well, or how do you feel? So someone said, well, chicken again tonight already? And I don't even know if they said already, but, chicken tonight, you might say, yeah, what's your purpose in saying that? Oh, well, I just couldn't believe it's already chicken night.
Absolutely. So don't assume you understand, because language is so ambiguous and it's elliptical, as you say, and you're only getting, because the other piece is not only does the receiver tend to mind read, but the speaker is also doing a form of mind reading, assuming you know what he or she means.
Yes.
Right?
Reverse
right.
Yeah.
That's a reverse kind of mind reading. I assumed, what did I have to go into detail for? I was sure you knew what I was thinking.
Yeah. Don't you?
And that one's messed up too. All right, so I gotta take a break and I'll be back with you in a moment on Ask Dr. Love Radio. So hello again and welcome back to Ask Dr. Love Radio. I'm Dr. Jamie Turndorf and I'm talking with my guest Cindy Teevens on how you can be happy no matter what's going down in your life. So I love this sentence you wrote, Cindy, how we have tethered ourselves to the uncontrollable winds of change in the midst of freedom and how we can return to truth, sanity, and peace. I love that.
It's such a relief.
I know. It's sort of like, like a good poop.
Oh my gosh, speaking of poop, the day I was done with mind reads had a lot to do with poops.
I know. I know. I have this very psychic side of me, so I knew I was being led to speak about poops with you. So you want to say more about poops?
Two things happened that day. I was walking in the park, and I came upon some dog doo-doo. And this was well before the joy and and all of the mind reads came up. Oh, people are so lazy. Why don't they clean up after their dog? They shouldn't have dogs. They're neglecting their dogs. And I was working myself up into a good froth as I continued walking, and I saw another one. And it just went higher and higher, and it was really building. By the time I got to the third
You don't mean the poop was becoming higher and building.
Well,
I don't think that's not what you meant, right?
Well, there was more and more and more. And
more poops.
And I just thought, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so my mind reads and my state, this horrible state that I was just building up, was getting higher with every new discovery. And then I thought, well, this is unusual for this park. This little moment of clarity came in, and I looked up across the park and I saw that they were everywhere, but they were evenly spaced apart. And I realized they weren't poops. They were dirt dug up by the lawn aeration machine.
Oh, you see, silly? This is a manure metaphor.
I love it.
This is a manure metaphor that tells us how if you look for poop, that's what you see.
You'll see. So true.
They say that, people don't expect to find four-leaf clovers, so they don't look for them. But in fact, they're all over your lawn.
Yes, apparently so.
So if you look for meadow muffins, that's what you're going to find.
That's what you're going to find. Absolutely.
Oh, so, that is great.
I felt pretty darn silly and laughed it off and kept walking. But then I went into a public washroom that day, and I, went to find a clean stall. And the first one was, had fluid all over it. And okay, I went to the next one, and the next one had fluid all over it. I said, okay, well, third time lucky, and I get there and there's fluid all over it. Well, I got to the end of the stalls, and every single one had fluid all over it. And I had cursed women up, left, right, and center.
So you thought now you were getting pissed off because everybody was peeing all over the place.
That's right. We got the piss and the poop metaphors here. So I had never seen such a thing. And I got to the last stall. I said, well, I've got to go. So I wiped things up, and then I sat down and did my business and stood up, and then whoosh, the water flushed on its own, went way up over the seat and left fluid all over it.
There
Just
you
like
have
every
it.
Other seat. It's like every other.
When you get pissed off, don't assume you're being peed on.
That's great. I burst out laughing. I don't know if there's anybody else in that bathroom, but I burst out laughing. I said, that's it. I'm done with mind reads. Because not only can you mind read people, you can mind read dogs, bathrooms, toilets.
I love that. That's really fun. So much fun. So tell everybody now, you also have a teleseminar that you do, the 5 biggest mistakes people make trying to be happy. So what are those? Did we miss any of them?
Well, let's see. One of the major ones, of course, is believing the happiness lie, what I call the happiness lie, which is believing that things, people, or events make us happy or unhappy. That is huge.
Yeah. That just really sets you up, huh?
Oh,
really sets you up to be miserable. Mm-hmm.
In every way and shape. You know, from your business, your relationships, to your children, everything.
Right.
So that's number one. Second thing is looking for what you don't want.
Looking for poop in all the wrong places.
Too many, yeah.
I need my head examined, I swear.
Who are you going to go to? Oh, dear. Most people,
you didn't know it was going to be like this with Dr. Love.
No, I had no clue. But see, it's no surprise.
Yeah, really.
If you have no clue, it can get better and better and better and better and better.
Yeah.
So if you get out of your way of it, you know, let it be. Just let it be and see how good it can get.
That's really nice. And any other 5 of the biggest mistakes people make trying to be happy?
Yeah, they try to be happy.
Just try. Don't even try.
No,
I mean, you just, it's counterintuitive, right? You just have to not try and then it flows. It's kind of like, you know, the same thing with when a man tries to get an erection, you know, the more you try, the more elusive that baby is, you know.
The worse it gets. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You just want to allow, relax and allow. And then that's when erections come and happiness comes and amazing miracles come your way. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not a case of giving up, saying, you know, well, I give up. I can't be happy. That's not it.
Like defeated. That's a defeated feeling. Instead of more like we're talking about believing in the miracles. I just trust. I trust and I believe. And I turn my palms up and I let the miracles come to me and the happiness come to me.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
mean, just by the very seeking happiness implies what?
That you're unhappy. There's something's wrong with what's going on now. You know, so often I'll have patients come into my office and they'll start complaining about what's wrong. And I'm thinking, but hey, isn't it pretty good right now? In this moment, nothing's wrong.
None of that is happening. That's all imagination.
Yeah. It's just sort of like we are trained to focus on the poop piles and the pee piles and we don't see the four-leaf
when you're looking
clover.
at poop, you can't see anything else but poop, right?
You can't see the forest from the poop. No. Yeah. That's a mixed metaphor. It's the forest from the trees, right?
No, you can't. And because you're blinded because you have focused your power of attention. I talk about the 3 powers we were all born with. And you focus the power of your attention onto one thing to the elimination of other things. This is why you can't see them.
Because we can't focus on more than one thing. So tell everybody who's listening how to get in touch with you, how to find you.
TheHappinessLie.com will lead you to me. So will AlchemyLoveJoy.com. And you can get the rest of the happiness mistakes. There's even 2 bonus mistakes at happinessmistakes.com.
So now I noticed Alchemy, Love, Joy. The A is capitalized, the L is capitalized, and the J is capitalized in that, Earl.
That's just for visual purposes. You don't need it, and it won't matter.
You don't need it when you actually put it in there. Okay. And same with the happinesslie.com. Don't need to capitalize anything. Okay.
Either way will work.
So, you know, I was so happy being with you. I'm already living in the past now. I'm thinking about how you were with me. And then I'm thinking about the future, how I'd like you to come back. And I'm getting unhappy.
There's nothing wrong with that. I'd love to come back, too. This is just so much fun. So much fun.
Really. You're lots of fun. And so I want you to promise you will come back. And then that will be the only futurizing we will do.
I'd love to. Agreed.
All right. And I just wanted to tell everybody listening, and I'll tell you too, because you might like to know this. My new Hay House book called Kiss Your Fights Goodbye, Dr. Love's 10 tips for cooling conflict and rekindling your relationship, is going to be released from Hay House on the 20th. So that's this coming Monday, the 20th, right?
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, that's so exciting. And in the book, I talk about how you can turn conflict into connection with anybody, friends, family members, coworkers, spouses, husbands, wives. And a lot of what I talk about in the book is how you can actually use your brain to help you get there through training your brain. We talked a little bit about that earlier. And if you order the book before the 20th, I have a little pre-order gift. If you just email me, it's pre-orders at, I think it's pre-orders at drlove.com or pre-orders at askdrlove.com. But you can find the pre-order gift at my website on the new book page, and it's Dr. Love's 7 Secrets to Lasting Love. So that is a little something I wanted to tell everybody about. And, you know, another thing, everybody is telling me at Hay House, and this is a tricky little thing. It's really important that the people who read the book review the book. Did you know this, Cindy?
Yes. It's reviews are very important.
It's very, very important on Amazon and on Goodreads because apparently positive reviews encourage other people to buy the book. But the tricky thing is, the techniques that most self-published authors use don't work when you're being published by a mainstream press, because if you want to ask people to review your book, how do you do it when you don't have the email address? If they're buying on Amazon, Amazon doesn't give you the email address, so you have to shamelessly ask people when you're doing a radio show.
It's all for a good purpose. So.
Yeah, because you know, I just really want to spread this word and get it out there and help as many people as possible to find out about my method and turn conflict into connection and love and joy, the kind of love and joy that you are living. I mean, your joy just emanates. I mean, you are absolutely like a sunburst. You're just, I mean, and I just love the way you giggle. I've just never met a grown up who giggles so shamelessly as you do. And it is such a sign of joy and happiness. And I know that, you know, there are a lot of experts out there who don't walk the walk, but baby, you do walk the walk. You really do. So I encourage everybody to check out what you're doing too. And don't worry, be happy.
Be happy. That was the realization, you know, that cosmic moment of nothing matters. And when nothing matters, you're fearless because there's nothing to fear.
You know, it's interesting because I talk a lot about how the brain messes us up in our life and in our relationships. And it turns out the most primitive part of our brain, or the limbic part of the brain, which is, I think, at the base of the skull, that part of the brain is made to be looking for problems because it was really adaptive for us when we were, you know, hunters and gatherers, and tigers and wild beasts would jump out at us. We had to always be scanning for problems because that's how we kept our butts on the earth plane. You know, we weren't eaten. So that particular brain adaptation is not helping us so much now because we're always saying, what's wrong? What are you thinking? I know you hate my chicken, you know, and so we're creating all this misery for ourselves. And so one of the things that you have done is you really have found a way to not listen to that limbic part of the brain. I'm not scanning for danger. I'm happy, I'm peaceful, and I'm not looking under every rock for who's out to get me and who is putting me down and what's wrong. And so it's tremendous what you have done. And it's you're really a walking miracle. And I'm so glad that I met you and that we're going to be friends. So
yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to say goodbye, and I'll see you all next week, and have a great week full of happiness. See you next time.